My name is Karen Mathers, and the truth is, I should never have come that day. The moment I stepped into that ballroom, I already knew the kind of welcome waiting for me. The ceilings were high and dripping with flowers. Crystal lights reflected across polished floors. Laughter echoed too loudly, the kind that felt rehearsed rather than real. Champagne glasses lifted in celebration that looked perfect from a distance, but hollow when you stood close enough to hear the whispers. It was my sister Issa's wedding. The grand event my parents had been boasting about for months, maybe even longer. To them, it was the social moment of the year. To me, it felt like walking back into a place where I had never really belonged. I moved quietly through the crowd, almost like a shadow passing between glittering dresses and tailored suits. Most people didn't even notice me. Those who did offered polite smiles that vanished the moment they looked away. Karen. Issa's voice sliced through the noise of the room like a blade. She stood near the center of the ballroom, radiant in a custom silk gown that caught the light with every small movement. Her eyes were bright, not just with happiness, but with something else. Victory. "Oh, you made it," she said sweetly. "I was worried they might mistake you for catering." Soft laughter rippled through the group around her. One of her bridesmaids covered her mouth while smiling. Another tilted her head and looked me up and down with open amusement. Even our mother didn't react. Not surprise. Not disapproval. Nothing. I smiled back, small and controlled, the way I had learned to do long ago. I didn't answer. Instead, I found my seat. It was near the kitchen doors, tucked behind a tall decorative plant where the staff lined up with silver trays. Before entering the main floor, from there I could watch the entire room while remaining almost invisible. They probably thought I would shrink into the background like always. Stay quiet. Smile politely. Eat what I was given and pretend it was enough. But here was the thing none of them knew. Half the people in that ballroom had jobs that existed because of me. And the man Issa had just married. His family's entire legacy had nearly collapsed not long ago. Their company had been weeks away from ruin. The person who quietly pulled it back from the edge never asked for applause, never asked for a seat at the head table. And the strangest part, they were all looking right at her. Soon, they would realize they had been looking in the wrong direction all along. Growing up, people always said Issa and I were like night and day. She sparkled. Even as a child, she had a way of commanding attention without asking for it. Teachers adored her. Neighbors praised her endlessly. And our parents. They revolved around her. Every dance recital was treated like a major performance. Every small trophy was celebrated as if she had conquered the world. Meanwhile, I learned to fold quietly into the background. I became the easy child, the dependable one, the quiet achiever. At first, I thought that invisibility was a kind of freedom. If no one watched you closely, they never tried to control your choices. So I studied hard. I went into finance, earned my degree early, moved to New York and took a demanding job right after graduation. No one in my family ever asked where I worked or what exactly I did. They simply assumed I had become some ordinary accountant. Not that they asked Issa questions either. She was busy being admired. She spent time studying art in Milan, a journey my father proudly funded without hesitation. Tuition, living expenses, travel, all of it. He called it her creative destiny. When I lost my job during the financial crisis years ago, I called home hoping to hear a familiar voice. My mother told me I would recover, that I just needed to be smart about things. Then she passed the phone to Issa so she could tell me about the exciting new artist she was dating. That was when I understood something clearly. My family loved a version of me that stayed small, quiet, helpful, reliable. Not the woman who started her own consulting firm. Not the woman who quietly built something powerful. They never asked how I bought my brownstone, never asked why I traveled so often. They assumed I was still struggling. By the time Issa announced her engagement, I hadn't seen my parents in years. The invitation arrived as a short message. No phone call. Just a date, a location, and a simple line saying they hoped I could make it. I almost didn't go, but something pulled me there anyway. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the smallest flicker of hope that this time would be different. Of course, I should have known better. A year before Issa's wedding, my firm had taken on a confidential project. A family-owned logistics company facing quiet collapse. The paperwork arrived through secure channels. Non-disclosure agreements. Financial statements. Emergency restructuring requests. When I saw the name, I recognized it immediately. Whitbridge and Company, one of the oldest shipping businesses on the eastern seaboard. On paper, they were still powerful. Behind the scenes, they were falling apart. Debt was piling up. Subsidiaries were failing. Legal disputes were growing more dangerous by the week. The entire empire was standing on fragile ground. The CEO was Malcolm Whitbridge. At the time, I didn't know he had a son named Derek. And I certainly didn't know Derek was dating my sister. My work was simple in theory, though never easy in practice. Entangle the debts, close failing branches, rebuild stability quietly before the outside world noticed the damage. Step by step, the company changed. Underperforming divisions closed. Liabilities separated from profitable operations. New structures created to stabilize revenue. Slowly, the bleeding stopped. Then something remarkable happened. The company recovered. Profits returned. The crisis passed. Months later, Malcolm Whitbridge sent a message through his legal team. He said the strategist behind the restructuring had saved his family's future. He said he owed that person more gratitude than he could express. I never replied. That wasn't part of the job. But months later, my sister announced her engagement to Derek Whitbridge. The connection was obvious to me. To everyone else, it never crossed their minds. Which is why I sat quietly at that wedding table, listening to the jokes, the teasing, the polite insults disguised as humor. They thought I was nothing. Just Karen, the forgotten sister, the invisible one. And then Malcolm Whitbridge stood up. He didn't raise his glass. He didn't smile. He simply looked around the room and began to speak. What he said next changed everything. Because in that moment, the truth finally stepped into the light. And suddenly, the person everyone had been laughing at was the only one in the room they could no longer ignore.